archinsho, omen porane, kusum sangye gungingoni, rangsem chegung unsum dunsepe, zawai lama shapla sovade.
Let me just make it housekeeping. I'd like to make a housekeeping request. The whole endeavor of foundational practices is very personal relationship between teacher and student. If there's a good reason for you to have your screen off, okay, but we actually would very much prefer to see anybody who is online. This is really about the relationship between us and you, and we want to see how what we're saying is impacting, if possible. There are, of course, always some circumstances where it's not. And also, if you have a name which is either a phone number or just something like iPhone, if you could click on 3 dots in the upper right corner of your little box, you can see that you can change your name and you can let us know who you are. We really want to know who you are personally and we want to relate to you personally. So if you can, if it's at all possible for you to show the video and to have your name, we very much appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And also you get to see each other. We are Sangha after all. We are not strangers. And we get support from each other in various ways, including just by knowing each other's presences through the visual. So thank you for acceding to that as is possible. Ngondro, magic word, famous word in our traditions. It means literally that which comes before. Before what? Before our full flowering into realization of the way things really are, the way we really are, the way the world really is, we could say, naturally awakened state of all of us and of the world as a whole. And that means that our ordinary mind, which doesn't see things this way, which sees things as quite ordinary, feels ordinary, we want to open it up and in some sense dissolve it or somehow let the natural light of our own real nature come through. So Ngondro goes before. It really is, these are foundational practices. Somebody early on in the translation scheme of things translated it as preliminary practice. And as Donsai Khyentse Rinpoche he speaks about the so-called preliminary practices, because if we look into them, they are the foundation for all the rest of our practices, for our whole life, on to Buddhahood. They are like, if you're building the house, the mansion of your realization, you need some kind of foundation. Ultimately, it's a groundless ground. That's our true foundation. And we need to come to know that. But using a more ordinary metaphor, we can say that, if you're building a house, a mansion, we're always building mansions in our practice. You want a foundation that's going to be there. Every time you walk into that house, the foundation is there. Every time you practice, your foundation is there. So these foundational practices open the path to us. And what is being opened to, what we are opening towards, we can say, as Rinpoche likes to say, so long as we are just seeing ourselves and the world as ordinary, ordinary means in our habitual way, and we all have our own ingrained habitual ways of seeing others, seeing the world. There's always dualism involved, some sense of distance and separation in ordinary mind. And then once there's that distance and separation, then we like some, we don't like some, we approve of some things, we don't approve. We live in this kind of fractured world. And it seems very reasonable to us. And we're going to want to look into that reasoning and somehow, I mean, we need ordinary common sense. We're never going to trash that. But we want to recognize the, I could say, Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche would say, magic. There's magic around. It's not just all ho-hum. And what is the case, actually, and this is a phrase from Rinpoche I really love, it actually also sourced in Longchenpa, the great figures of Dzogchen, including Longshen Rabjam and Jigme Lingpa, our personal friend. Rinpoche himself, as you know, is, as a young child, was Lingpa. Tell us that what is actually the support and cause for everything is nothing at all, really. Nothing at all, really. We need to understand that. We need to come to recognize that. And we want to recognize that in reality itself, this magical, non-ordinary, but ever-present and actually indestructible reality, the most intimate thing about us that we want to get to know, is free of any coming and going. And that is the foundation of the teaching. To be inseparable with this beginninglessness of your own, sometimes we can say your own luminosity. Are we in touch with our own luminosity? Well, we may not think so, but hey, when you look at something, you know, right? You look at your friend, you know, hey, that's Regina, that's John. I can look, I know. There's knowing always accompanying. Awareness, we can call it awareness, that is always accompanying us everywhere. And that awareness in its actual nature, your specific personal awareness in this very moment, is in an important sense that we may have yet to understand, anyway, in an important sense is already an awakened state. Awakened means to be aware. We already have awareness. And we may not be in touch with the very essence of that awareness, which is a fundamental state of awakening. But that's how everything is. Everything is sealed in this, we can say, perfection, this completeness. And this is a key point of our teaching. It's already there. Our Buddha nature, our true nature, our reality, this most intimate, groundless ground in which there is no coming and no going, uncontaminated, perfect, luminous, ground of everything, but nothing exactly in itself. Longchenpa says, when I realized that everybody is so flustered by all the things that seem to surround us, that seem to be so real and true, but they actually don't come from anywhere. They actually are not as stolid as we feel. So if these words alone don't fully awaken us to the reality that is, which has pretty much been the case for everyone since Indrabhuti, the great king who was king, mythical, semi-historical maybe, king when Guru Rinpoche was discovered in his flower. So the practices of Ngondro, the foundational practices, are an introduction to the entire spectrum of the path. What is the entire spectrum of the path? There are the parts of the path that are common to all the teachings, recognizing how precious your own human life is. That's really important for a practitioner. Really important. Probably all of us drop into moments of gratitude from time to time, but also we are often quite consistently beset by worry, anxiety, and so on. To recognize the preciousness of our lives, and then to recognize our impermanence, our mortality, this precious gift that we have of a human life, able to read and write with enough leisure and safety to meet at will on a Saturday morning. So we begin by recognizing preciousness and impermanence, recognizing also how karma, the cause and effect process of our own actions actually creates our life and our world. And that the actions that we do that are mired in not knowing how we really are, precious and impermanent, are key windows onto the nature of how we really are. So we recognize that. We recognize that our actions are creating our lives, our habit patterns, our unconscious reactivity, all of this. Very human stuff. And we look at how our kind of mindless reiteration of habit patterns just keeps the wheel going. That's what samsara is. Samsara, we know, is a swirl. We can translate that way. Cyclic existence. And what is this cyclic existence? It's not just the planets going around the sun. It's the way our thoughts continuously proliferate, produce more thoughts, and they're all circling around, we could say, the sun of an over-reified sense of self that we want to confront in time, because, as Rinpoche likes to say so profoundly, it's by recognizing, seeing our ordinary sense of self, our mistaken sense of self, the one that feels as if I am eternal. Not that we would say that intellectually, but this sense, see you tomorrow, we'll see you all next year, right? There's some sense of, and sometimes we remember to say God willing, or Insula, or Buddha willing, or as my teacher Khenze Yeshe Tup would casually say, see you soon, right? We learn to see the suffering that we create through our own, what feels natural to us, desire, hatred, jealousy, anxiety. These things feel very natural, but what we come to see through practice is that they're habitual, but they're not our nature. Suffering is not all you are, says Thich Nhat Hanh very wisely. We are also something indestructibly wondrous. So these teachings, and then learning how to connect with the teacher and the teachings, with the community as well, these are important to all the Buddhist traditions, and they form the first part of the Ngondro. In the Brilliant Basics, that is the first kind of cycle of teachings that we do. So this introduces you to the fundamentals of practice. Your life is precious. It's impermanent. We ourselves are creating our now and our future through habits that are based on a lot of mistaken assumptions that we can unveil, unpack, bring to light through our practice. And then in the uncommon part of the foundational practices, we take refuge. This refuge that we sing together when we gather is Jigme Lingpa's own heart song. It is such a profound teaching. It itself contains Sutra, Tantra, and Dzogchen. And in refuge, and we develop bodhicitta, we are now, in this part of the practice, we are developing relationships with Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, very specifically, and also with the bliss-filled ones, the Buddhas that, in addition to Shakyamuni Buddha, inhabit our world as practitioners of Tantra, Guru Rinpoche, the Great Bliss Queen, who is a form of Yeshe Tsogyal. Even if you don't know these names, you will. But you know already, I think, just from looking around our temple or any Tibetan temple, there are many images of awakened beings. And we, in these practices of the second part of Ngondro, we meet them. We cultivate a relationship. What does that mean? We cultivate a relationship with, for example, Guru Rinpoche. I don't know, you can see behind here. You can't see very well. You've seen him. And we learn, I can't do this quite right. There he is. And we learn to see Guru Rinpoche, which means precious Guru, precious teacher, as our own teacher. That's one level. And then really we learn to see Guru Rinpoche as the source of our practice. We take refuge also in our own subtle body in a manner of Tantra, and the subtle channels and chakras, and this is also a refuge for us because we use the subtle parts of our body in practice. As some of you have done, if you've done the Seeing to Being with us or other practices, you know that we learn to pay attention to the central channel, for example, which is not something a surgeon will find when they open you up, which hopefully will not happen in this lifetime. It's a deep place in the body, and it's very significant for us in our practice. We take refuge in our subtle body, and we take refuge in Dzogchen's own way of taking refuge is in your own actual nature. Your ultimate guru is your own true nature. The guru is not some big boss. The guru is your nature come alive into a way that we feel we can have a relationship looking like a human form. Guru Rinpoche, all of your teachers. So we learn to develop this relationship. We don't become best friends or lifelong partners with somebody overnight, usually. Sometimes we do, right? Generally, life, it takes a while. You develop this relationship. We develop a relationship, so we have refuge. We cultivate bodhicitta. And in the process, we become a Buddha. We learn to feel it's natural for a Buddha like Guru Rinpoche, an awakened being. Oh, it melts into us. We melt into him. We become one. We dissolve into space. We come out of space. And in this way, we start to become familiar with this idea, this key principle of Dzogchen, that while there isn't actually anything at the source, at the ground level of phenomena, everything comes forth from the real realm, from the Dharma Dhatu, from your true nature. Everything comes forth. And so we're always melting into space and emerging out of space. It's kind of sweet, right? And then Vajrasattva, then we purify, but we feel, oh no, I can't really do this. I have so many anxieties, so many problems, and frankly, if I look a little closely, a whole lot of nastiness too that comes out, and never mind, there's purification. None of this is your true nature. It is something that affects us now, but we purify it with Vajrasattva. And then we become a pure being made of light like Vajrasattva. And we do this very simply. And we offer a mandala. We cut the root of our suffering with severance. Beautiful practice. And we close with Guru Yoga, when we ourselves become, to our own imagination, a fully awakened being, and we do this on a daily basis. So we are moving, this is Dzogchen orientation. So the foundational practices give us the whole spectrum of the Buddhist path, and in this way becomes a foundation for any other practices that we do up until the most subtle stages of Dzogchen itself. And we have it all condensed into a song. We have a text Rinpoche wrote for us. We call it a sadhana. These kinds of practice texts are called sadhana, which Tibetans translate into that which allows us to accomplish our practice, a method for accomplishing our practice. It's a song we sing. It's a song we sing to ourselves. As you know, just like we did this morning, we sing refuge. We sing it. These are Jigme Lingpa's words. They become our words. We become, in a way, both teacher and student, both Lama and Loma, as we sing this guided practice. It tells us what we are doing. We are describing what we are doing to ourselves in this song. And most of you, I think you're all familiar with Rinpoche's distilled version of Jigme Lingpa's text. And we also, in the Brilliant Basics, we also share with you Jigme Lingpa's own longer text, just to get a feel for it. The parts that are longer are actually the parts of appreciating the preciousness of human life. It's good to go through that. There are 18 points that are made there. We go over them in Jigme Lingpa's text, and also the Guru Yoga is more elaborate and is actually an introduction to the stages of Dzogchen practice, Jigme Lingpa's text. So in Brilliant Basics, you get introduced to all of this. And the Brilliant Basics is a self-paced course. It's available online. Many of you have done it or are doing it. You get approximately a 20 to 25-ish minute video, I think, per week, more or less, and then one or two guided meditations of 10 to 15 or so minutes. So you can do that at your own pace. And the magic is repetition. If you're hearing this for something like the first time, yeah, I get it. It might sound complicated, but I can promise you that after you've done it on a regular basis for a little while, it doesn't take long, it becomes very, very clear. And I can assure you, at your age and level of accomplishment, you have all done many, many, very much more complicated things than what we're seeing here. So it's at a pretty slow pace, and at least we've been told that the pace is working for people. It is at your own pace, but each section goes over every part of the practice quite slowly. We follow Words of My Perfect Teacher, and you also get Rinpoche many, many years ago kind of said out loud as if to space, it would be good if you translated the Adzom Trukpa also wrote a commentary on the foundational practices that are really central to our tradition. We meet the lineage, and you meet yourself in a variety of different ways. And so I have translated, in fact, Adzom Trukpa's commentary. Adzom Trukpa received these teachings from Patrul Rinpoche, who is the author of Words of My Perfect Teacher, which is, I suppose, the closest thing that comes to like a Bible for our tradition, because it's such a beautiful, detailed discussion of practices. And you have that as part of Brilliant Basics. It's still going to be another year, I think, before it's published, but will be published next year. And he adds some very interesting flavor to the foundational practices. So for us, this is also an important text. We did them, Lama Namgyal and I, when we had never yet met a single Western person who had, I think, even heard of them, let alone practiced them. And now you have, look around, you have a Sangha. People in all of the Tibetan traditions all the traditions have their own, and then also their own specific version of the foundational practices. And they're all the same in principle. The figures that are central to the imaginal life of these practices are different, but the principles are the same. So I think I'll stop here for a moment. We want to hear from Lama Namgyal, but let's see. Are you with us so far? Do you have questions that I might not have thought of that you might like addressed?
Let me say what I'm
Okay, you
fixing
think
to
about that.
say, and
Okay.
we're still sort of at the 30,000 foot level here to some extent, although Lama Rinchen Dolma has given a beautiful summary of some of the key points. I'm going to be, as I often do, repeating much of what she said, but just in my own words. I think we're all mired in our ordinary minds, and I think probably everyone here has some sense of what the ordinary mind is like, and I suspect everyone here has also had some moments, whether it be due to a particular relationship, heightened moment, or often in nature, or in some kind of spiritual environment where something breaks through and there's a new perspective. And one thing I think we can describe the foundational practices as is really a movement from our ordinary day-to-day mind to a spiritual sensitivity, to having a spiritual sensitivity. I think that one of the things that we do work with, and we actually didn't rehearse our different pieces exactly together for this presentation, but I'm using some of the words and phrases that she's used. Over time, we come to realize that common sense, in some instances, actually binds us. Our ordinary day-to-day way that we cope with life is very, very binding. And I think probably everyone in this audience has had enough life experience to recognize that there are ways in which we just keep repeating and repeating. We meet a new person, it's exciting, and then after 5 months or 5 years, there's some kind of trip up that just has occurred over and over and over. And part of what engaging in spirituality, and certainly with the foundational practices, is about is beginning to make the familiar strange and the strange familiar. I mean, it's very, very important for all of us to start opening up to altered possibilities of experience. Altered possibilities of experience. And doing the foundational practices is an avenue for doing this. It involves thoughts, it involves feelings, it involves imagination. The practices. The practice leads to a broader view, which is kind of the way we think and feel about things. But it can also lead to a fresh engagement with life, a new way of experiencing things. Something new and different may enter the field of our experiences in doing the foundational practices. And it also allows for closer encounters with our deep spiritual home. Our deep spiritual home has a lot of names, a lot of different phrases and epithets, but to some extent, we can call the endeavor of spirituality as homecoming. arriving at that which is real, that which is actual, and that which our heart intuitively knows that it's kind of oriented towards, much like a moth to a flame. It's just a very, very natural inclination to want to go to our innate depth. And that's what the foundational practices are orienting us towards. We have this video program. 1974, our teacher, Khetsen Sangpo Rinpoche, did an oral commentary on the words of my perfect teacher. It got edited by Lama Rinzin Dolma. The translator was Jeffrey Hopkins. It occurred at the University of Virginia. But for some, tantric practice in Nyingma is an easy entree into the material of the foundational practices. We really encourage people to take something like 6 months to a year, do the teachings that we've offered, and get used to slowly actually reciting the practice text, singing it. There are melodies. Getting used to singing it over the course of 6 months to a year and making that a daily practice. If one can have the practice of the foundational practice recitation text as a daily practice, it is an enormous anchor for spiritual life. It's something that I do every day. It's something that our teachers do every day. And it's a way of keeping in constant connection with depth, with purification, with some aspects of realization. I think this may be a moment to look for questions or something's come up in the chat.
Yeah, it's, thank you, that was lovely. Sometimes it feels like what we're really talking about is a kind of ultimate love story, because to touch into whatever you call it, your quiet place, your deeper place, sometimes finding it in nature, sometimes finding it in art, is kind of falling in love. And there is, like a moth to a flame, as Lama Namgyal said, there is, once we do get some whiff of it, even if it's just a tiny bit, there may very well be a kind of, oh yes, I need to see more of this. Help me see more of this. So that's what the song is. That's what the siren song of to reality is, the Ngondro. And yes, Marco, so actually the very first day Rinpoche arrived, he asked if I had translated the Ngondro, Jigme Lingpa's Ngondro, and I just had into chantable English. And then I asked him if he would consider writing a Ngondro that has the refuge. Jigme Lingpa's four-line refuge is one of the most rich pieces of literature that I'm aware of in the Buddhist tradition. For example, that please keep the Lama rising from your heart. Would you keep that, and would you write something shorter? And by the next morning, he had written it. And he says in the colophon, as you may know, that if you don't have time to do Jigme Lingpa's own text, he also kind of charmingly, with charming humility, apologizes for any damage he might have done to Jigme Lingpa's sacred word. But nonetheless, if we don't have time to do Jigme Lingpa's, please do this one. So we have it, and that is what you're referring to, Marco. It is concise, as you see, and once you've read Jigme Lingpa's, you realize how it's actually all there, also in Rinpoche's. So that is the one that we use on a daily basis. we are when we did Ngondro, it was Jimmy Linga's entire Ngondro that we did on a daily basis. And so I think we both have, Jimmy Linga is a great poet, fallen in love with it, and we'll encourage you to have some acquaintance with it because it really strengthens, I think, our appreciation of Rinpoche's Ngondro. Yeah, so anything at all, don't be shy. We're all friends. We've heard lots of questions about Ngondro over the years, and honestly, they're all important. If it's something you want to know, it's important.
Yeah, so just Marco alludes to something that Lama Rinzin Dolma's being a little bit modest about. So the text is in we call chantable English, and many centers and practice sites will have translations of practice texts, but they just do them into prose English, which is wonderful. And given her skill sets and interests, Lama Rinzin Dolma has been able to put the material in Tibetan into the same meter as the Tibetan. So you could be in a Tibetan context and chanting the English alongside Tibetan colleagues, and the rhythm and the tune would be the same. It's just that the languages would be different. And Rinpoche has certainly said that it's really important to be able to sing the texts that we have in the translations, because there is something about the melodious transmission that strengthens the absorption of the material. Arthur Joyce has a question.
Okay. Hi, Arthur.
Hi guys, I'm so appreciative of both of you, and it's very precious to get this today. So thank you. Um, so I had kind of a question about several aspects of this, which have to do with the details of the practices. And so, for example, when doing Vajrasattva, there's details of what Vajrasattva looks like, and there's details of the Tibetan letters that are involved. And I'm only using that as one example. There's other areas with other Tibetan letters, for example. And so my question is, how important is it for us to memorize, like, for example, Tibetan letters, and apply that as we're doing it? Is that something we gradually do, or does it come later, or should we be doing that earlier on? That's the general question. Does that make
Well,
sense?
first of all, I would say thank you for reflecting on this. We do our best in every case. I would say that getting familiar with the sense of Vajrasattva in your mind is helpful. And, the way that we do the seeing to being is itself an introduction to the fundamental structure of all of our practices. And you have done that. So just like we did when we were staring at the oval, like from the heart, and then closing the eyes, letting it appear to you, and so on. That's really how you can become familiar with the sense that you're seeing, feeling, sensing, intimately having Vajrasattva, in your mind template, so to speak. Keitan Sama once threw out, if you don't know Tibetan, I think it will be hard. I mean, you could over time memorize the alphabet if you like. It's not that hard, but it would take time. You can certainly imagine the mantra. The point about the mantra is with our alphabet, O-M, Om, V-A. The point about the mantra is that it's made of light, that it is shining out blessings, that it is purifying you. And Ajahn Trungpa is particularly detailed about the Vajrasattva practice. He really makes it just an extraordinary practice. So you do your best, and You can do one at a time, the different things that you're imagining, until over time, habits develop and you are able to, or familiarity develops, and you're able to. The main thing is that the nectar is coming down through you. And Ajahn Trungpa specifically emphasizes how it comes down through, again, your central channel. And you feel it at your four main places: round, throat, um, heart center, and belly, and really invites us to sense that. Yeah. So you do your best, and also allow yourself to be relaxed enough that you get into the flow and feel the light coming, feel the disgorging of all the things that you want to get rid of into the earth. Don't sacrifice that. Sounds like you're going to say something.
Yeah, I would add that there are a couple of seed syllables that become central, like om, like ah, like hum, like hri, that are very, very critical and often are the seed of a meditation. And slowly, if you could get used to om, ah, hum, hri, in what they look like in Tibetan, that would be good. But not a rush. You can still use English letters. And also, while we're mentioning Vajrasattva in particular, we are intending to do our Losar New Year retreat this February. Will be a detailed practice. Not this year.
It's the fourth one.
Oh, next
Down the road. In the
next
seeing to
Losar,
being.
next Losar,
Well,
2007 will be Vajrasattva.
but
Yeah.
your practice that we did in the seeing to being of relating to the ovals and so forth, and if anyone hasn't done it, of course it's available, is modeled on that. It's modeled on Rinpoche's specific instructions for how to integrate with, feeling like you're seeing. That's the first part of seeing, right? Seeing to being. And yes, you can recite it in English. We ourselves, when we, as you noticed today, when we recite something 3 times, like the Refuge in Bodhicitta, we recite 3 times. We get in the habit of doing like English, Tibetan, English, or Tibetan, English, Tibetan, just to stay a little connected with the Tibetan. But you can certainly do it in English. The more we do it in English, Tukatanda told me, the more it becomes blessed. Just like the Tibetan practices are blessed because so many people have recited them with such devotion for so many centuries. So we are blessing the practice with our practice. Sonia, we're going to talk about the accumulation soon. We want to finish with this part.
Are there any other
Make sure the questions
kind
about
of
what you've heard so far.
Overview questions, or kind of for those of people who are really new to all of this, questions?
It's a process. You don't learn it all at once. Just like you learn to read or you learn to drive a car. There was a moment I can remember before I could read, before I could drive, where it just seemed kind of impossible. But I knew a lot of people who had done it, so I had confidence. And sure enough, we're very good at learning. So was that a hand up there?
Yeah.
Whose hand?
Brunel.
Brunel.
Yeah. Good morning. Thank you for sharing this wonderful information with us. So I'm drawn to today's session and teaching with some level of awareness of Ngondro, also some confusion. And having practiced mostly with the Lukpa lineage in years past, there seemed to be a somewhat prescribed series of things, and I think maybe that will mean the accumulations, like 100,000 full prostrations,
Right.
or at least hand um, uh, standing, kneeling, bowing your head. Um, and so I'm also waiting with excitement about, let's just say, the detail. Just, but remember,
Okay.
there being something about like building a temple or a small shrine or something like that being part of the Ngondro. So just um,
Mhm.
passing that
Mhm.
on, that interest and confusion on.
Doesn't sound too confused. You're right on. The Galukpas also do this, do a Ngondro. The first retreat I ever did after studying at the Library of Tibetan Works and Archives with Geshe Gamung Targe, who was teaching it at that time, and I said I was going to do a retreat, and what should I do? And basically, he didn't call it Ngondro. He said I should study. I memorized some philosophical material, and think about my precious life and impermanence, and I should do a refuge and bodhicitta and vajrasattva. I did at that time. So yes, let me wind this back for a moment as I hear there's interest in these are called the accumulations. So what we are proposing for you and inviting you into is to get familiar with the Ngondro. If it were up to us, we really wouldn't talk about the accumulations until you are familiar with it as a daily practice, till it becomes easy, and it does become easy, to do it daily. You're familiar with it, it's an old, deep song for you, and it becomes deeper and deeper and deeper. One thing that repetition shows us is that as we repeat, as familiarity grows, meditation is about developing familiarity. As familiarity grows, it becomes easier. And what seemed like, oh my God, too much, you can very easily do in a morning session, in an evening session, split between the two. So I want to emphasize, especially for those of you who are new and who are like, maybe this sounds like a bit much, just get used to the practice. Our suggestion is don't even think about accumulating until you are for 6 months. You're familiar with it. You do it every day. It's not a big deal. It's part of your life.
Maybe even a year.
Maybe a year. Because it's important. The familiarity part of it is really important. However, since you ask, so if you're new to this, you don't have to make a commitment now. You can just know that it exists. It's something possible for you on the horizon. There is something known as, we call it, accomplishing or accumulating the Ngondro. An accumulation of mantras is accumulation of spiritual power, is how we understand it, is purifying, is a chance to just be in the world of your practice as you recite, as you bow down. It's very powerful, I can say from experience. It also seems like a lot of work, especially at the beginning. So what are the five? They're the same as Brunel just mentioned. You do, over time, 100,000 prostrations. Full prostrations, full length on the floor. And we show you this very carefully, how to do it in the video. There's two kinds of prostrations. Ajahn Trungpa talks quite in detail about them also in his Refuge chapter. But just briefly, you can stretch yourself out on the floor. Ideally, you have a smooth floor or a rug. Tibetans sometimes use these kind of Ngondro machines. I've never used one. They have them in places like Bodh Gaya, as Renee well knows, Nathaniel too. Or Khetsen Rinpoche, interestingly enough, told us to do short ones. I don't know if he thought, we were Westerners and not capable of doing the full ones. It is also said that if you do the long one, you get as much merit as the grains of earth underneath your stretched out body. So if you're tall, you're 6 feet, you get a lot of merit. There is a preference for the long ones. However, there is also a great significance to completing the 100,000. And if that's going to make it more possible for you to do in a reasonable amount of time, you have permission to do the short ones, and you can alternate. So we do that, and yes, we recite the refuge as we bow down. And we pretty much get 2 bows for each.
No, 2 recitations.
What?
Two
Two recitations for each bow. Now, Khyentse Rinpoche and Adzim Rinpoche did it a little bit differently. I think for Adzim Rinpoche, we do all 100,000 to the refuge. And then,
Prostrations plus refuge.
so that means you are accumulating 2 accumulations simultaneously. You are accumulating the recitation, 100,000 of those, and
Refuge.
accumulating 100,000 of the bows. Now, your body may not be able to do that, and in that case, 2 things. If your body is, you've done as many prostrations as you can for the day, you can sit down and do some accumulation of the bodhicitta verse. It's the same one that we sing daily when we gather, and recite that 100,000 times. You count it on a mala. We explain all of that in the video as well. So that's 3 of the 100,000. And then Vajrasattva, which is an incredibly powerful practice. I really invite you, as much as your life allows, to do some of each of these practices in retreat if you can, even if it's just 2 days, a 4-day, long weekend, a whole day, even 1 day of retreat. Retreat means 4 sessions a day, and you're not listening to radio or online or even talking, ideally. Retreat intensifies it and makes it more, it just makes it stronger, and it helps you value more what you're actually doing. What you are doing is transforming the way you potentially live in the world. And very step by step, little by little. So then Vajrasattva practice, there's a 100-syllable mantra, which you will be used to by now, by the time you accumulate, because you will be having done this practice for daily for 6 to 12 months. It will just roll off your tongue. And you count that. You do that 100,000 times. And then there's a mandala offering that you do by rubbing a mandala plate. That's also all explained. You recite all these things every day when you do the Ngondro. So by the time you're accumulating them, you're really, really familiar with them. And you do that 100,000 times. You can work out the math, how long it will take you. We found that another thing about the prostrations. So on any given day, if you've done as many as you can do, then you can go on and you can begin to accumulate your bodhicitta mantra. Rinpoche has, the traditional way is you completely complete one and then you start counting the other, but Rinpoche has given his willing permission to do some simultaneous accumulation, partly because most people can only do so many prostrations a day. If you can, if you're young still, we were very young when we did, I did 4 sessions a day. I can't believe it now, but I did 250 prostrations each session. So if prostrations are, full or half, are not in a possibility for you, you can also accumulate these by Vajrasattva mantra. So let's say your body, you only do, 500 prostrations or 10,000 prostrations, because you can still do some. You can always, if your body can, you accumulate some prostrations, but you can substitute a prostration for recitation of the Vajrasattva mantra. So that means you would say it. You would say the Vajrasattva mantra 200 times. Once,
200,000.
200,000 times.
Can I say something?
Yes. Just 1 second. Yeah, so those are the accumulations. And, everyone, you have to make your schedule. How many can you do a day? How many can you do a week, on a weekend? And you'll see, your capacity will grow, I will tell you. I didn't do 250 right off the bat. Your capacity to recite, it will be slow at first. It will get much, much faster. Okay.
So
Yes, you are visualizing. You are in a whole world of, you are in the Vajrasattva world when you are imagining, and this is described in detail. You are bowing down to Guru Rinpoche, to all of your teachers, to a whole world of refuge beings. Even if you don't imagine them individually, they're all included in Guru Rinpoche. The whole world is made of light. It's a pure realm. So yes, thank you for asking.
yes, and you're imaginatively having your male relatives on your right, your female relatives on your left, your enemies in front of you, and all sentient beings behind you. So it's quite an orchestra. So what's the rationale for all of this? There are reasons. So traditionally, it is said that we have been accumulating obstructions and karma since beginningless time. That's quite a pile. And that our ordinary way of seeing and thinking is influenced by all of this accumulation of karma and propensities over beginningless time. These practices of accumulating are said to clean out the karmas and propensities that prevent us from really understanding our true nature, the obstructions that prevent our liberation, the obstructions that prevent our awakening in this lifetime. So it's really an enormously powerful endeavor if you think that rebirth is beginningless, and we've been mucking up our kind of apparatus beginninglessly. It's not that much to do 100,000 prostrations and so on and so forth to make us vessels for receiving deeper instructions, guidance, blessings to understand our true nature. The metaphor, I used it the other day, but I'll say it again. The metaphor that's given is, without the foundational practices, we're like a steel ball, and the blessings of the tradition and our teachers are like a metal sharp hook trying to lift up a steel ball. Hopeless. With the practice of the accumulation of the foundational practices, the blessings, the tradition, our teachers are still the same sharp pointed hook, but we become like a ball of yarn. And so it's very easy for the hook to grab and lift us up. It's a process. It's a process of cleansing. In terms of the whole path, there are advanced teachings that we will not and cannot give to people who have not completed foundational practices. And they would include, traditionally, you wouldn't even be allowed to do tantric practice without foundational practices, but that's long since gone. But there are things like the Yeshe Lama, which is kind of the most profound introduction to Dzogchen in our tradition, that requires the completion of the foundational practices, or at least a clear schedule of completion for allowance to participate. And then there is mind nature guidance from the lamas, which is a very, very profound, intimate, relational introduction to the nature of the mind that is from teacher to student, we can offer them. There's a specific tradition from Adzom Drukpa and Adzom Pela Rinpoche on mind nature guidance that we can only offer to individuals who have completed foundational practices.
And some texts that we are reading with Lama Tenzin and Longchenpa, very important treasury of the Dharma Dhatu. He doesn't admit people unless they are committed to, at least really committed to, in the process of doing Ngondro, because it is the conviction of our teachers that we won't really understand if we don't engage in these practices.
So it's
So-
really, go on, go on.
Do you want to say something to Lama Nathaniel?
Yes, go on. Lama Riggs and
Okay,
Shara.
so Lama Nathaniel, Lama Riggs and Sheriff will say something.
So I am prepared to stand corrected by the lamas when I say this, but I want to be maybe a little unorthodox and encourage you, if you have not practiced the foundational practices before, then I would almost encourage you not to accumulate them or to worry about accumulating them. And the reason is something that Lama Rigzin once said. I've repeated this, so if you've heard this, stop me. But Lama Rigzin once said in a Ngondro or foundational practices retreat many years ago, 2012, I believe. And I always repeat this because, in part because it was so powerful for me, but what's most important in the beginning, as they have said, is just to establish a daily practice, which is itself very challenging to do, actually. Every one of us has, a number of responsibilities, very full lives. Finding the time and the space to sit down for 5 minutes, 15 minutes every day is very challenging. And that means that the effort to maintain a daily practice is itself a practice. And I remember when Lama Rigzin said that the first time, she said that what you learn from the practice of trying to establish and maintain a daily practice is that on any given day or in any given moment, how you happen to feel, as important as that always is to recognize, doesn't have to be what guides your every action. So what you learn trying to establish a daily practice is that there are some days when you will want to practice, and so you will. And there are other days when you will not want to practice. And if you can establish the habit of practicing anyway, there's a great deal that you will learn about yourself over time. She said some minutes ago, talking about the commentaries, that you meet the lineage, but you also meet yourself in a variety of ways. And I want to repeat that because I think that's a very important part of foundational practices. You meet yourself in a variety of ways. And really, it's the repetition of Ngondro day in and day out over a period of time where you will really meet yourself, for better or for worse, on any given day in a variety of ways. And that turns out to be really important, I think. And so accumulations are very, very important, obviously, but they're not the only reason why this practice is important. And there really is a lot to be said for the power of just doing the practice every day. The other thing that might be helpful, and this might not be helpful, but it has been helpful for me, is, as you can already see, there are a lot of details. And those details are important because they're meaningful. Every detail in the practice means something, and every detail has a rationale. And it is important to learn the meaning of those details and to learn that rationale. It's not necessary to know all those things to begin the practice. That's important. But also, if you don't know, or on any given day don't remember, let's say, what this detail really means or that detail really means, if that doesn't come to mind for you, it's still really powerful just to have an object that you try and put your attention on, let's say. So even if it's vague, so we have these visualizations or we have these mantras that we recite, and it's still really powerful if if all you can manage on any given day is just trying to be aware of what the visualization is or aware of what the mantra is, because in a case like that, what you're doing is you're trying to bring your attention to rest on a particular object. When you notice that your mind drifts, you bring it back. So it's exactly the kind of thing that we do when we practice any kind of meditation. So you might practice meditation of mindfulness of breathing, and the qualities that you're cultivating are the same. So all of that is just to say that it's important to learn these details and to learn the meaning of these details, but the practice itself still involves cultivating qualities like awareness and concentration and insight just by virtue of trying to do the practice. So don't let those details and the meaning of those details keep you from diving into the practice. You learn as you go. You become familiar as you go. And what you might experience is you might think you understand the practice, have a good sense for it, practice it every day over time, and then it will open up to you in ways that you didn't realize. You'll start to see or recognize dimensions of the practice that weren't clear to you before. And that's the kind of thing that really only happens when you give yourself the space and the opportunity to do these things every day over the course of an extended period of time. Um, and I don't want to take up much more time, but there's a quote that I wrote down years ago from Malcolm Gladwell, actually, that made me think of Ngondro. He was talking about jogging and running in marathons, but I immediately thought of foundational practices. That might be telling. But this is the quote that I offer. Training is all about faith and patience. You go for a run one day and the next, and over and over and over again for weeks and months, in the hopes that one day you will be able to race as fast as you could possibly race. And more often than not, that's exactly what happens. I think we all need reminders that if you persist at something difficult, something of value will result. So I apologize for rambling a bit, but just thought I might share that from my own experience.
Bravo. Very,
Lovely,
very
lovely.
important. You learn as you go. And if it were up to us, we wouldn't mention the accumulations, frankly, at the beginning, because it tends to be an obsessive quality. People, and that is why, and thank you very much, Lama Nathaniel, for emphasizing this. We are asking you, inviting you, explore this practice. Explore it by making it a daily practice. Explore what it's like to have a daily practice. It changes the structure of your day. And honestly, the way we think of it is once you are really familiar and comfortable after 6, 8, 10 months, maybe a year, comfortably familiar, ask us for permission to begin formal accumulation. In other words, like Lamrijin Sherab, we don't want you to be burdened with this, oh, am I going to do it? I don't know how. Just wait. Just learn as you go. The power of repetition is enormous. I can tell you that after, I don't know, 40, 50 years, still, some days, once in a while, I have to stop and write something down because I've understood something that I never saw before. And you're smiling because that happens to you too, right? It's that kind of a process. It's like getting to know someone really, really, really well. There are always surprises.
So if you're thinking about accumulating,
Don't, unless you're ready.
and part of the thinking about it really would involve looking at your quality of life issues, looking at what kind of time do you really have available on a day-to-day basis, and do you have some days, some weekends, some weeks, or some months when you could do some retreat. There is a way in which, especially amongst our modern practitioners, people take on the task of doing foundational practices and end up just using it as an excuse to beat themselves up and hate themselves because they're not doing it. That's kind of a lose-lose proposition. It really should be something that you've thought about carefully, that you've talked about with us, and we've engaged in a kind of a spiritual agreement, a samaya, an attunement, that yes, it sounds like your life is suitable, you have some time and space to do the accumulations, and that you're looking at something like a 3 to 5 year commitment of finishing that practice. It's a very specific practice that should be completed. I will say this, and it's one of the ways in which ordinary mind gets shoved to the side. In my own experience as a teacher, I would think that people, let's say, who are retired and have all the time in the world to complete foundational practices, they would be the easies. They would complete, they could do it. And that people who are working 60 or 70 hours a week have lives that are so full already, they could not complete. But I have to say that what I have seen is the most busy individuals have completed Ngondro most quickly, and people who have an enormous amount of space and time on their hands are prolonging the practice over decades. It's paradoxical. Maybe some of you know the famous American saying, if you have something important to get done, give it to a busy person to complete. People who do a lot can take that energy and apply it to Ngondro. People who have trouble engaging in focused activity can have all the time in the world and will find it difficult to do. Most of all, don't make it an avenue of self-blame and self-denigration. It's a practice. Some people can take it on, not everybody can. But it's enormously, enormously rewarding. It's spiritually fulfilling. There's an interesting reason why Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche entitles his book on the foundational practices as Not for Happiness. Our culture in general, the modern culture, is oriented towards self-fulfillment and happiness. Self-fulfillment is wonderful. Foundational practices can certainly bring self-fulfillment. And they are work. They are effort. They're not for immediate gratification. They're not immediate sensory gratification. They're not just for happiness in the moment. They take a great deal of effort, patience. And really the first thing, and Lama Rinpoche Sherab Gyatso really referred to this, is that, if we hear doing 100,000 anything, our immediate reaction is, you got to be kidding. That's just not realistic. And so we have obstacles of ordinary mind. It's just too much. It's impossible to imagine doing that. But here we are when we practice bodhicitta, saying we are going to bring all sentient beings to Buddhahood. Well, guess what? Doing 100,000 recitations of the bodhicitta verse is just a warm-up for the expansion of mind that we need to have when we're contemplating working for all sentient beings. What an undertaking that has to be. And so we have to kind of shatter our ordinary mind. We have to break it. We have to give it up. We have to transform it. And it turns out the ordinary challenge of making the recitation of this text daily is a first hurdle. How easy or hard or doable or undoable is that for us? To make that a daily commitment. I have not missed a day in decades. And that includes being dog-ass tired in Delhi after traveling on a train for 15 hours and not really being able to keep my eyes open and just doing the recitation. Was it optimal? No. But as Lama Riggs and Sherab Gyatso said, we don't know how our practice and our experience is going to mesh. Sometimes I feel like a son of a bitch. I'm angry, I'm upset. I sit down and do the practice, and I'm thinking, I am in no mood to practice. And all of a sudden, I notice things about the nature of my mind or my mind that are very unusual. There's a clarity that I just didn't imagine would be present with me being in such a foul mood. Well, when you start looking at Tantra and some of the nature of mind teachings, it turns out that anger is a distortion of discriminating wisdom. And if we can let go of the story and just sort of be with the energy that's available in us as we're doing our practice, we may notice and feel what discriminating wisdom feels like. You won't have that unless you're doing a daily practice. You won't realize how fickle the mind is. And we think we're in a bad mood. We sit down, we end up having a wonderful practice. We sit down, we think we're being spiritual. We just can't wait to sit down now. And all of a sudden, our mind is all over the place. You get humble. It's a wonderful quality to have on a spiritual path. I'm wondering if there are questions,
Or comments.
observations, anybody wishes to share, anything.
You know, it's a journey, it's a process, it's a path. Learning to be kind to yourself is very important. Very important. You won't do it perfectly every time. You may never do it perfectly. What does that even mean? But you'll do your best. And you'll meet yourself. The daily part is really important. Do I want to practice every single day? No, I'm tired. I have this and that to do. But I always do. And I always am grateful. Somehow somebody got it into my system that that's just going to happen no matter what. Even if I'm falling asleep, I don't care. I have to do what I'm capable of doing. Otherwise, I don't know. It's just not complete for me. I really, yeah. You know, you brush your teeth pretty much every day, right? Because it's good to do that. So it just becomes part of your life.
I will just throw out, we have not completely successfully figured out how to encourage support, peer support for those who are doing Ngondro. If there are some people in this group that you're seeing here that want to self-organize and create an ongoing peer support group, that would be delightful. We can certainly advertise that in our newsletter. We can
Let us
send out-
know if you're interested in that, whether people who you are close enough to meet with in person. It used to be when we had people would get together in Houston on weekends, even just 3 or 4 people, and do like a weekend retreat together. You can do that online. It's really helpful to have support.
Yes, so what are the Sangha teacher supports along the way? We certainly are available if you have questions to ask us. We would like, our experience is if there is actually from within the peer group itself energy to create a support group, that's going to be a lot more successful. So let us know if you're interested in doing that. As I say, we will advertise it to Shane. Is there any way to get everybody's name who's here, or do people need to leave their names in the chat box? How should we do that?
Yeah, I can get all the people that are like actively participating. Is there anything you want me to do with the names, or what is it?
Either get it to us and to Emily. Burnell has got his hand up.
Yeah, so 2 questions, or 1 question, 1 comment. I'm anticipating that you'll tell us how to access the video that you offer for guiding Ngondro. And then secondly, on the Dawn Mountain WhatsApp site, there's a Ngondro group with 16 members.
Yes.
So sounds like that's one option available for us.
Yeah, so within the
Yes.
WhatsApp group, yeah, sign up for the
Sign up,
WhatsApp group.
actually, that's probably the best way.
Please
Thank you,
do.
Brunel.
Please
Yes.
do.
Sign up for the WhatsApp group and yeah, thank you.
And the material is available on the website under Brilliant Basics, is under our
You
programs.
there's a button you can push to sign up for it.
These are great, very specific questions.
Okay, thank you, Renee. You're making an offer here. Let's talk and figure it out. But we are happy to have peer input. It's really what, you get to know each other. It's like life. You're not alone. So we really want to support you. You can also, as you meet together, oh, we need to hear more clarification about this, and let us know. And we like people to do that anyway before we have what we call the Llama meeting with the Ngondro people. So we like to hear from you. If you get together, or if there are comments on WhatsApp, we'll either read them, somebody will bring them to our attention, and then we feel, okay, it's time to have another Llama meeting, to hear where you're at, what's difficult. Don't expect there won't be difficulties. Of course, there will, but in some ways that's a sign of success also. Keizen Samba said that when you do Ngondro, he really meant when you're accumulating it. I think as you're doing it as a daily practice, there's plenty going on already. And Keizen Samba said, he used an interesting phrase. He said your karma speeds up. Which may mean that you're hitting a wall sooner than you might otherwise have of some kind or other. You realize that, I don't know, you're angry or you're jealous or you just, as we've all three been saying, one way or another, you meet yourself, right? So of course, you're going to meet some things that maybe aren't so delightful. But you have the support of the Sangha, you have our support, and you have the support of the lineage itself. You're always communing with Buddha, Guru Rinpoche. So there's a lot of support.
Sometimes the mantra has to be do it anyway. I mean, I say that to my kids and they don't like when I say that, but
Yeah.
that turns
Yeah.
out to be, I think, important advice
Yeah.
in life sometimes. It's important to acknowledge how you feel and do it anyway. See what happens.
Yeah, because one of the biggest things we learn as Dzogchen practitioners is that thought is not really your ultimate boss. You could actually feel some way and not follow through on it. I don't want to practice. Okay, that's you talking. Some part of me is talking. Hi, I get it. But I'm going to practice because I have that commitment. You get mad at your partner, well, never want to see you again. Okay, but really? I mean, I'd feel that way for a moment. Just do it anyway. You're going to fall asleep. It's okay. You don't have to write us a confessional note. You're going to get distracted. It's okay. We get to see that. You learn to forgive yourself also. It's kind of an interesting medley of really doing your best and then loving yourself, whatever happens. Just
So
doing it is really important. Nike had something there. Just do
I'm
it.
not entirely sure as to the mechanics of getting on the WhatsApp group, but I think you could go to WhatsApp and
You can put yourself on it.
no, Emily needs to clear them, but
Oh,
you can
but you will.
certainly request to get into it's called Dawn Mountain Tibetan Buddhist. So it's under Dawn Mountain Tibetan. There are 7 groups, and one of them is the Ngondro group. So look for Dawn Mountain Tibetan, and then go to the Ngondro group and request entry, and Emily will let you
And
in.
if you have trouble, write Emily, and she will help you. And yeah, Renee, Yeshigyomo was saying, don't give up on yourself. You didn't know, you had no idea you could do something on a daily basis. You can. I once heard on the radio many years ago, for some reason it stuck in my head, that one of the things you can do in life to make yourself just more confident about life is to make a plan and do it, no matter how simple it is. I will always wash my dish after I get up. I personally don't do that. It's just an example, right? But you could make some simple commitment that you know you're capable of And then you've done it. And what does that show you? It shows you can decide to do something and do it. This is also true with Ngondro.
Are
And
there
if
any
you,
final questions or observations?
One very
No.
briefly, I dropped this in the chat, but it sounds like there are at least some folks who might be interested in a regular practice session. We've talked about this, like the three of
mm-hmm,
us and with Emily, and
yep,
so I
you're
think
breaking
maybe
up.
the easiest
You
thing is
froze.
that, oh, am I frozen? Sorry, did I freeze?
No, you're good.
You're breaking up.
I was just going to say
Yes, you
Yes.
did.
WhatsApp
Please speak.
WhatsApp will be the way that we might try to organize this. So if you're not on that WhatsApp yet,
Yeah,
please reach out and ask to be added, and that it'll be through WhatsApp that we try and organize something like this.
yeah, and yeah. Thank you, thank you. Please, with any interest at all, it doesn't mean you're committing to a daily practice yet. Feel free to explore. You have to explore. You may not know what you're capable of. Yes, I know, Maddie. People have different schedules. So if there's enough energy, we might be able to schedule things at slightly different times. You are welcome to join, just as whenever we have a retreat, you're always welcome to join the practice just to sing with it, along with it. So just feel free. We'd love to have your presence, your energy. Everyone brings something, right? When we come together, every one of you is bringing something important.
Purnell's got his hand up.
Yes, Brunel.
So just a comment in part for Arthur, who had asked about learning Tibetan letters, that at the last fundraiser, Lama Rigson Cherub offered a
Oh, yeah.
intro to Tibetan language, and Lori and I attended and were quite drawn and enjoyed the experience and purchased the text that he recommended. I've gone online and found a few YouTubes to help with some pronunciation, and I'm having a blast and really motivated Tibetan. And I never thought for a minute that I would have the capacity to do it. And Lama Rigson Sherab, as we were looking at the consonants and vowels, it was just like overwhelming. And he just said, I just, memorized them. And it was like, you can do that? And it was,
Again,
and I've memorized them, and I'm moving forward with the different subscribed, superscribed suffixes, etc. And do it. It's really fun. And
That's
and it
fantastic.
that's
and it is
fantastic.
also it is considered to be practicing Dharma to learn Tibetan.
Totally.
Definitely. Well, we'll have to see if we can get you to auction that off again, or maybe even make it available to people who weren't at the auction. That's great. He is an outstanding uh, translator and very knowledgeable in Tibetan. You don't know what you're getting if you get some lessons on Tibetan from him. Besides, we need more
Too kind.
translators. So, wonderful.
We're there.
Well, thank you, everyone. As things come up, mention them in the chat. Let us know. We want to be in touch with you, and we just invite you to explore it. It's an adventure, honestly. It's very profound. And let us dedicate all our good conversation and your good attention, and we'll close with that, if we may, Shane. By this good may I swiftly once become a great guru, lead all beings, everyone, to reach to that very ground. With all of you in mind, we light this lamp of clarity. May the glow of love, wisdom shine within us, everyone, till we all rise forth born in one awakened mandala. And for the long life of our teachers, especially His Holiness Dalai Lama, Atum Pela Rinpoche, Jason Kajawamo, we will sound, and for all the people that we know, people suffering around the planet, people known to you, let's sound three ahs, sending light and love from your heart center out to your own future, to everyone here, to the whole suffering planet. By the end of the third ah, the whole universe. And don't forget people near and dear to you. Include them in your first ah as well. Please unmute so we bring our voices together. Thank you. That was our first ah. Wonderful. Thank you all. Thank you for your presence, your being. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Lovely to see everybody.
Love to you all. See you soon in the Ngondro circle.
Take care, everybody.
Be well. Thank you very much, Shane.
Thank you, Shane.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Ciao. Ciao, Europeans. Thank you for
Ciao.
being
Good night.
Good night. Good night. Good schlaf.
Good night.